Hello and welcome to this third tutorial video on how to make a denim jacket for your ragdoll. The two parts that make my collar, I've swapped one for a lining, so I've got one lining and one main fabric just to add a little bit more interest. And I'm going to pin them together, wrong sides out, right sides in. Just use a few pins to hold them together through the main body of the collar. They don't slip very much, these fabrics, so it's quite good. And then once I've pinned them together, I'm going to sew down the short edge all the way around the curve and up the other short edge and leave this top bit open for turning out. So there, that's sewn around. I want a bit close to the edge here. I'm going to snip the corners off, so when I turn it right sides out I can get neat corners on my collar. So just these three sides. And now we're going to sew together the front and the back facings at this point here, which is actually the shoulder point. It'll match up with the shoulder point on the main jacket body we've done. So a couple of pins on each of those, one there and one there, and on this side too. Just a couple of pins, and because it's not top stitched, this is just going to be a normal 5mm seam allowance across there and across there. And now I'm going to pin the collar to the back of the jacket. I'm actually going to use the notch to line up with the notch in the centre of the collar to make sure we get the positioning correct. And then this notch will match up with the seam here, and I'm actually going to flatten this seam out because when we attach the facing you're actually going to be sewing through a lot of layers, so we want to keep it as easy as we can. And then there'll be a notch here to show you where the edge of your collar is, because it doesn't go all the way around, it stops short of the front. So again, line that notch up with the seam there, flatten that seam out, and take this one around to that notch just there. This is definitely my favourite item we've made so far. I think this is adorable. And now we're going to place this facing over the top, so it's all wrong sides out as far as the jacket and the facing is concerned. Obviously the collar is right side out, and again line the notch up here, and I'm just going to pull out the pins that I've used so far. It's just much easier than trying to position it all. So pin that to there, flatten that out and pin that to there. And then take the facing right the way to the edge, so you'll line up the notches there where the edge of the collar is, and then let's do the other side, so the other shoulder first. And then the edge of the collar there, and that little notch that lines up with that, just there. And then we're going to take that right down the front, so we'll start off at the corner here, and we'll do the corner on this side, and then we'll take it right down to the bottom, and pop a pin in there, and then we'll just pop one in the middle to hold that in place. And then the same on this side, right down to the bottom, so that you can use that to make sure it's all level, and then in the middle there. And this is going to be our normal 5mm seam allowance all the way around there and down to the bottom there. Facing is sewn to the main body of the jacket, and now we're going to turn that facing to the wrong side. So turn all of these little corners right side out. Make sure you get them properly turned out, and then it's really worth ironing this flat, because otherwise you're going to have problems with this facing just popping up all the time. And the best way to do that is to iron it, and then everywhere you have a seam, put a little tack just to hold that facing down. So make sure it's ironed flat first so it doesn't pull it out of shape, and then just a few stitches tacked on the seams just to hold it down. So across where the back yoke joins the back is a good place as well, and that'll hold that all flat and keep it neat. And once you've done that, fold your jacket like this, and that's really starting to look gorgeous now. Let's just have a look at that. See, that's taking me right back to my childhood now as an avid Bon Jovi fan. Right, now with wrong sides out, we're going to sew these side seams. So pin the top, and then the bottom. A little bit more important on a slightly stretchy fabric like I'm using here. And then we're going to do the other side. Top, bottom, and one extra one in the middle just to hold it all in place. And then with our normal 5mm seam allowance, we're just going to sew down those side seams. Now let's insert the sleeve. So I've got my front of my sleeve, which is plain, and the back of my sleeve has the top stitch. And it's always a bit awkward to work out which sleeve goes on which side. So turn your jacket wrong sides out and keep your sleeve right sides out. And then the back of the sleeve, which has got the top stitch, goes to the back of the jacket. Like that. So as long as it's your bottom seam is at the bottom and your taller top seam is at the top, and the back of your sleeve is against the back of the jacket, you're good. So line up those seams there, and then use the notch that will be at the top of the sleeve to line up with the shoulder seam of the jacket, like that. And then pop a few more pins to hold it in place. And on the other side, it's another one where you can't have too many pins really, because it'll help to kind of ease it into shape. And then we're going to sew all the way around, and then do the same on the other side. These two little tabs are a detail from the back of the waistband. So fold your tab in half and then pin it just to hold it in position. And we're going to sew this with a normal 5mm seam allowance, because there's going to be no exposed seam. A 5mm seam allowance will do on here. There we go. And then sew along here, here, and to the end here, leaving this bit open to turn right side out, and then repeat. Now we've sewn our tab all the way around, we're going to top stitch it, and again we're going to do that all the way along the top, around the pointy bit and down to the end. We're going to attach the waistband to the body of the jacket now. So on your waistband in the centre you'll find a notch, so you want to line that up with a notch that you'll find in the middle of this pattern piece, the back middle panel. Flatten these out first, make sure they're nice and flat. Take the waistband over the edge there by about 1/2 centimetre, 5mm, so that you can fold it and sew it in a little while. So over the edge by about 5 centimetres, and pin it in position So it's overlapping by about 5 centimeters, and then line up the rest of this, ease it into position and just pin it in place. One in the middle there, and a couple on this side, one there, one there, and we'll pop one more in the middle there. And then we're going to sew along here, a normal 5mm seam allowance on there. Now we've got our waistband on all the way around. We're going to pull this down like that, and then we're going to fold it back on itself so it's wrong sides out, and we're just going to give it a little overlap of about 5mm again. So you see we've got a little overlap there, because we want to be able to sew through the seam in a bit and catch that. So it goes to about 5mm past the join, and we're going to sew up there, and then we're going to do the same on the other side. So fold it up flat and then fold it back down with a 5mm overlap of where the jacket meets the waistband, so that when you sew through the edge of the waistband and jacket seam, you catch that. Sew through there. Now those short edges are sewn, I'm going to turn the waistband right sides out, and this is another time when it's handy to actually iron it. I'm a very lazy ironer. Once that's turned right sides out, what we're going to do is we're actually going to sew through this join of the jacket and the waistband through this seam here to catch the other side of the waistband. That's why we did the 5mm overlap, and once we've done that, we're going to top stitch at the top and the bottom all the way around. So our waistband then looks like that, and here are our tabs ready to go on. Our positioning for our tabs is actually, they're going to sit like this, but our positioning to attach them is actually the other way around to start off with. So use this seam, this side seam, as a guide, overlap by about 0.5 centimetre, 5mm, so your tabs are pointing towards the front opening. Sew them in position there, and then once they're sewn in position, fold them back towards the back. It's worth pinning them, and then top stitch through there, all the way through there, and the waistband all the way through the layers. So pin that down, and the same here, fold it right back on itself and top stitch through there. So pin that down, and that'll make it much easier to top stitch. Finally, or last but one I should say, we're going to attach the buttons to the cuffs, to the little tabs on the back, to the pockets, and we're also going to place 4 of these little buttons that I found, which are really sweet actually. I don't even know where I got them from. Good old button box. 4 of those are going to go down the front. So it's 4, 6 is on your pockets, 8 go on your cuffs, and the last 2 go on those tabs. And here, with its cute little buttons and poppers in place, is our finished denim jacket. Absolutely, at the moment, my favourite item that we've made so far. That concludes our tutorial video. I hope it's been helpful. If it has, please subscribe. We'd love your feedback and a like. There are more videos coming soon.